Hi everybody, how's it going today? Thanks for watching another video. Before we get too far into the video here, I'm using a different camera today. I was having some trouble with my other camera and was doing a little bit of research. And this camera is supposed to be better in dark light. So we'll see if it makes any difference or not. When I did a side by side, it kind of looks like it might be better. But we'll just have to try it. Try it for a few videos to see what it looks like. I'm in our heifer barn here this afternoon. We have been working on our freestalls in this barn here the last week or so. Just making some minor adjustments to the neck rail that guides the heifers in how they lay in the stalls. I'll show you guys that here in a second. Christian, Jose, Luis, and Brian are working on some stalls here in our 1044. As you can hear them with the hammer there, which is our the breeding age heifers in that pen. So we're just making small adjustments, moving them. We moved a few sections a couple of inches. In the section they're working on now, I think we moved them about 3-4 inches. So you guys probably can't quite see that very good. My handwriting is not the best, but I went through, just kind of visually looked at how heifers were laying in the pens, and then went back and looked at what the recommendations are for that age, and then kind of made a judgment based on both of those things on whether we should move the neck reel or not. We are not moving all of them. We didn't move any in our youngest heifers in the freestalls, but right around breeding age, and then the next group up, pregnant heifers, 15, 16 months of age. We made some adjustments there. We're also going to make a small adjustment. I think I'm going to start doing some measuring here in our far off pen. I want to just possibly move that neck rail a few inches just to give them a little more space when they enter the stall to lay down. I'll explain maybe a little bit more about what I'm talking about here when I get in the pen, but that's what we're working on today. So I'm in our far off dry cow pen here. So what we are working on, let's try not to scare these girls away here. We're adjusting the position of this neck rail. So let's just watch these girls get up here. So it looks like it's not bad. So essentially we want that cow to be touching that neck rail and be close to the back end of the stall with her back feet, so that when she lays down, her butt is right on the edge of the curb. So what we're trying to do is make it as comfortable as possible for the cow, but we don't want her laying too far into the stall, because then when she poops or pees laying down, it'll run into the bed, and then obviously not good for hygiene, not good for udder health. So we're trying to get a good position of the cows when they're laying down and keep the beds clean. And like I said, we're just moving it a couple inches, and that might not seem like a lot, and it's not a lot, but if we can make it a little more comfortable for them while still keeping the beds clean, it's worth it to me to make that small adjustment. And in the wintertime, we're always looking for some odd jobs to do, so this is a good job for us to work on throughout the winter. I think we might actually make some small changes in our cows freestalls also, in the 3rd+ lactation pens, to give them a little more space as well. But we're gonna get these in the heifer barn done here first. So as you can see her standing there, she's not quite touching the neck rail, but she almost is, and her back legs are on the curb here. As we look at these girls laying down here, her butts are in the right position. That's a heifer, the second one there. Pretty small heifer, kind of by the looks of it. She's a little too far forward. It's not as big of a deal in these pens if they're a little too far forward as it is in the milking cows, because the manure is solid. So it's not just running into the pen like the liquid manure from our milking cows, but just trying to get a somewhat of a good average. I'd say it's probably more important that the cows, particularly the older cows, are comfortable in these pens, even if that means having the heifers laying a little too far forward. because it's more difficult for an old cow to get up and lay down than it is for a heifer. So we'll just maybe walk down here and look at some of these. So like these two girls here, they're laying perfect. She's laying too far forward. So in general, I would say in this particular line right here, they're laying pretty good. So I think what I might do is just measure where we are in this particular line and then make sure that we're pretty similar across the pen, and then maybe decide if I want to move it anymore or not. Yeah, so as she's getting up there, she's fairly well positioned, I would say. We'll look at a few more here. It also makes a little bit of a difference. These girls are in sand bedding. The rest of our heifers are in separated manure solids, both deep bedded stalls, but it does make a little difference. It's a little easier for the cows to move around and to shuffle themselves back and forth in the sand bedding. Just a little more forgiving than the manure solids are. I hear you, girl. So she's another heifer here. She's laying a touch too far forward. As you can see, she pooped in the stall. On the opposite side of where it just was now, looking at these girls here. So that girl's pooping, as you can see, and her poop is flopping just outside the curb. So that's a heifer. So that her position is actually exactly what we'd like. Come on this side here, so we've got, these are all cows, and I would say they're actually laying maybe a little too far, or they could be laying a little further forward. I think I might just hang out here for a second. Oh, she's getting up there. I wanted to see how it looked as she got up. So that just by looking at it here, I can see that we should move that neck rail forward. So as she got up, she had to shuffle herself back as she was getting up. So I'm guessing what happened at some point when we installed these stalls, for some reason that neck rail is further towards the back end of the stall where the butt of the cow is. So we'll for sure make a small adjustment on that one. Yeah, you guys are not gonna be able to see it. There's another heifer behind her. See if we can get her to move over. So she's just about touching her neck on top there. Her back legs are off of the stall. So that's a good indication that we need to move that neck rail forward a touch, give them a little more space. And what I find, I particularly see it on the cows, if they don't have enough room, they like to kick the sand out, make it deeper so that it's easier for them to get into the stall, and we also don't want that. So that's part of the reason why I want to make some adjustments on the cows. But I'm going to do some measuring here, and then I'll show you guys what we're working on, or how we're doing it in that heifer pen here in a second. In our heifer pen here, so we go through, loosen up all these bolts, and then on the end here, there were anchor bolts in the wall. We cut them off, punch those into the wall, and then I've marked a couple spots. They'll line those two spots up, and then they'll line the whole neck rail up so that it's straight. But this one, so we were here, we're essentially moving it. I think with this one we're moving about 4 inches. This is not too bad. This goes pretty quick. I'll show you where the mark is here. You see that black mark? We're moving this side of the pipe to that black mark. We're moving these, looks like about 3 inches. And then I did go through and measure that other side, and the head-to-head sections where the cows are laying with their heads to each other, those are okay. We're gonna leave those. For some reason, that north section, that single row of cows there, they're 2 inches further back than the head-to-head, so we're gonna move that neck rail 2 inches, give those cows a little more space. It's a couple days later here. I'm back in our heifer barn. The guys are working in our far off pen right now. They're moving that one neck rail just a couple inches. They finished up these heifer pens here this morning. They drilled the anchor bolts in those end pieces. Just wanted to come look at some heifers here now that they're laying down after we moved that neck rail. So we moved this neck rail. Oh girl. So it was sitting here, so we moved it about 5-ish inches here, probably 4 inches. So she's standing up just about against that neck rail, and she's got her back legs on the end of the stall. That's kind of where we want her to be. And if I look at how these heifers are laying, they're all laying fairly decent. A few videos ago, I had some questions on our I think it was on our breeding strategy or matings, and not that long ago I had a video on that, but we did make a small change here just this last week on our heifers. So we had generally always started breeding, or we had been starting breeding at 380 days old. So the heifer had to be a minimum of 380 days, and then our herd guys would look at size. If it was a smaller heifer, they'd maybe wait another cycle, another 21 days, but it was a minimum of 380 days. In the past, we had been around 365 days, so they had to be a minimum of a year old. But our data from milk production in the first lactation, conception rate in the first lactation, cull rates in the first lactation, was telling us that those heifers that were calving in at a year and 9 months, that they were just too young. Even though they looked a good size, they were just not ready for milk production. So we had bumped it to 385 days, so 20 days later, 380 days, about 20 days later, and now we're making another jump, so we're going to 410 days. We're still seeing that they're not quite ready when they're calving in, even though we're breeding at 13 months roughly, so they're calving in at 22 months roughly. So those heifers that are in that month of calving at that age, their milk production is 4 pounds less than the next two groups. The next 2 months older heifers. Even though they look really nice when we're breeding them, the data's showing they're not quite ready. So it was a small change we just made here. Hey girl. So like this. Well, let's see what the ages are on these girls here. So she's from August, so she's older, probably pregnant. See if I can find a little bit of a younger one here. Middle of November, so she's 12, 13, 14, a little over 14 months. We'll look for a younger one. I might have to go the pen over. Like this girl here, she is she's exactly a year old. So she looks, I mean, size-wise, she looks pretty good. See if we can find another one. Similar age. She's a little older, a few weeks older, it looks like. We'll maybe walk up to the self lockers. There's a bunch of heifers eating. Here's another one. She's she's exactly a year old, this white girl here. Same with the one beside it, similar age. So looking at them visually, so this girl here, she's a month older, but she doesn't really look a lot older. But just that that extra month, that's making a, according to the data, it's making a pretty big difference. We'll maybe walk out front of them, see if we can find a couple more. So the majority of this pen that we're by right here will be just short of breeding age or right at breeding age, and then that first pen that I was just in, about half of those are pregnant, half of those are breeding age. So any of these 21 numbers, they're breeding age. This 22 number here, she's from the end of January, middle of January, beginning of January. So the data was showing that when they're calving at 23 months compared to 21 months, was 3-4 pounds of milk over the whole lactation, 3-4 pounds of peak milk higher. Conception rate was fairly similar, but specifically on the first breeding in their first lactation, those younger heifers were probably 3-4 points lower. So that's also saying that they just right after calving, they're needing another month, another 21 days for their reproductive performance to be at the same level as those older heifers. And then we also looked at cull rates. So those younger heifers, we were culling them 3-4% higher cull rate over the whole first lactation in those younger heifers compared to the older ones. So we just made that move, and we're going to do it in 2 steps. So we went from 380 to 400 now, and then in March we're going to go from 400 to 410, just so we don't end up with a big gap of no heifers calving. But in general, it's always the thought has always been you want to breed them as early as possible, because then you get them into the milking herd as early as possible. Less feed cost, raising them as heifers, less barn space, less lot space, less calf or hutch space. But now we're kind of trending back the other way. So the industry was always going younger. And now we probably made that first change probably 5 years ago when we went from 12 months to 380 days, 385 days. But then it takes a couple years again to get some data on that. So now we've made that move to, or we're going to make that move to 410 days, and then it'll take a couple years again to really get a lot of data on that. But I think it'll be a good move. I think it'll be good for the heifers. We obviously want them to come into the milking herd as soon as possible, but they need to be at the right size and need to be able to handle that stress of calving, coming into milk production. I mean, they start showing really good heats well before that time, and our herd guys are always, they want to get heifers pregnant, they want to get cows pregnant, so it's really hard for them to pass up on a good heat. But it's really just showing them the data to get them on board with that decision. And I think in the end we're gonna have better cows because of it. Don't really have anything else here for this video. It's kind of chilly today. It's about -5 here at the moment. I don't know what it is with the wind chill, but some fog in the barn, frost on the heifers' backs. It's supposed to warm up a little. Supposed to get cold tonight and then start warming up a little bit again. But we've got some negative teens in the forecast again. But doesn't seem to affect these heifers here at all. I mean, I really like the size of our heifers. They're not too fat, they're not too skinny, they're growing well. We just have to give them a little more time. But questions, comments, post them below. We're just about done with the stalls here in this barn. We are gonna straighten out the neck rail on our oldest heifer pen. We're not gonna move it, just straighten it out. And then after we're gonna work on the cows. So I'll maybe film that once we get to that. That's gonna take some more doing because I want to move that neck rail, but I also want to move the stalls up a little bit. Trying to figure out what the most efficient way to do that is currently, without having to take all the stalls off, moving the pipes and putting them back on. I want to try to keep it all together and maybe use a come along or something to raise them up. But we'll show you that when we get into it. But anyways, appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully we'll see you in the next video.